So thank you, Prasad, for agreeing to be a part of our session and giving a lecture on the same. I would also like to inform everyone that this is actually a part of a 2-lecture series. So the first lecture will be conducted by Prasad, where he will be giving the practical or a litigator's perspective on the topic of non-compete, non-solicitation, and confidentiality. And thereafter, the subsequent session would be taken by Professor Nilima Bhadbade ma'am and Advocate Vaishali Bhagwat, where they will focus more on the contractual aspect of this issue, that is how to go about in drafting clauses pertaining to these 3 aspects, and what are the practical considerations to be kept in mind. So with that, I request Prasad to kindly share his PPT and proceed with this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Shruti. Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to be speaker on this topic of law of confidentiality, which is a very interesting subject of law nowadays. So may I share screen, Kunal?
Yes, please.
Is it visible to everyone?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
So yeah, so just to begin with our lecture, so just congratulations to Miss Mirabai Chanu for making us proud, as we just heard that she has won medal in Tokyo Olympics, and today is also we celebrated yesterday and today as well the Guru Purnima. So bowing before our gurus, so who enrich us with their knowledge and all this information. I begin this lecture today, and today's topic is about the confidential information, non-disclosure, and non-compete clauses from a litigator's perspective. So we will start this session and conversation with the confidentiality notion. So what is it confidentiality, and why there is such a importance to this stream of law? As we know, because of these technological changes, now we are into digital age. This information is emitted, transmitted, shared, exchanged within a few seconds. So anyone who is sitting in India can access information related to US or in any geographical area of the world. So this information gets transferred within a few seconds. But because why is it so vital and confidential, and why we don't call each and every information is a confidential? So but for this we need to understand what is the concept of confidentiality, what is a confidential information. So it reads as any information, by the way, this is not a define as per define under any act or any under any law. So this is a general definition of confidentiality. So it's not as per any particular act or the section. So any information which is confided in another person, whether natural or artificial, under the circumstance of confidence, the unauthorized disclosure of which will lead to unwarranted losses to the disclosing party, can be defined as confidential. So this is a overall definition of confidentiality or confidential information. Now let's decipher this definition. So any information, to begin with this definition. So what is any information? That information could be anything, could be in any format, whether it's in hard copy, whether it's in print, whether it's in black and white on the paper, whether it's in soft copy, email, PDF, or it's in electronic format, the mode in which it is stored. So any kind of information. Now the second ingredient of this definition is important, which is confided in another person. Confided means it is shared, it is exchanged, it is provided to, it is imparted to another person. And who could be that person? Natural or artificial? So as we understand, being lawyers or being students of this fraternity, so person is classified into two notions as per legal standards. One is the natural person with we call human with blood and flesh, and artificial is a company or LLP or any other corporate entity, proprietorship. So that information is provided to, exchange to, imparted to any other person under the circumstance of confidence. That is, it is given under confidence. That unauthorized disclosure of the same will lead to unwarranted losses. So there are four ingredients of this definition. So any information provided to any other person under the circumstance of confidence, that is, it means that it is given under confidence, under a trust, that if you disclose this, I will be it will lead to the unwarranted losses to the disclosing party. So that is the definition of confidential information. So moving on to next slide. So we can say that, as we discuss, any information, so any data, information, document, which is extremely vital to a business organization, the unpermitted revelation of which can lead to losses and damages. So again, we revisit the definition. So any information, data, document which is provided, which is vital to any disclosing party, which is given to other person, and unauthorized disclosure would lead to unwarranted losses. So that's why corporates, and especially the IT companies or IT sector, they deploy multiple measures to safeguard this confidential and proprietary information, because the information, data is the key or is the capital or asset of these IT companies nowadays. They do not invest in machineries, they do not invest in any other tangible assets, but their asset is intangible one, that is their data, that is their information, the documents which they share with their customers or with their vendors. So these are elements of, moving on to next slide. So these are elements of confidentiality. So like a classical trinity of passing off, these are couple of standards, or these are conditions precedents, or these are elements, what we call elements of confidentiality. So let's see what are these elements of confidentiality. So any information to be ascribed the element of confidentiality is, it must consist of following characters. So first of all, foremost important one, that it should have element of secrecy. Say for example, the business information, proprietary information, trade secrets, or information about, as we discussed, about the customers of company, business strategy, the list goes on. It is never a ending list. Say for example, even your price quotation, your drawings, your designs, this could fall under the category of confidential information. And especially if we speak about IT industry, their source code, computer programs, their products, everything falls under this category. Then second one is, it must have some kind of economic value. So for example, any information which is considered as a confidential one, it should have economic value. Then third aspect, that it is not otherwise freely available in the public domain. If it is available in public domain, then it loses its character of confidentiality itself. So it should not be available in public domain as such. Then most of the times this confidential information should be marked as a confidential. So if you think that this information is a confidential to business enterprise, then at the time of sharing it, you should mark it as a confidential one. And the last element, that its unauthorized disclosure may cause wrongful loss to the disclosing party. So these are elements which form the term or the notion of confidentiality. So we have been discussing why this is so significant in today's world. So in today's digital age, confidential information has occupied so much of importance in all walks of business and personal lives. So it holds key to most of the business enterprises, be it IT industry, be it distributors, the chain of distributors. We have been handling couple of cases for our clients. They are not from IT sector, but they are into manufacturing as well as into distribution chain. And a couple of their ex-employees, they misuse, they unauthorizedly disclose this information, which led to severe damage to the business interest of our client companies. And we'll discuss these cases as we move on. So that's why it's, but in particular, so this aspect is very key to IT industry. Then businesses nowadays are very highly competitive, and hence in order to maintain the upper hand or to have cutting edge over each other, it is vital to protect information related to business strategies, profit margins, product designs, their source code, drawings, etc. So such information, if disclosed in public domain without any unauthorization, that would result into significant losses to the disclosing party, to the company, to the organization. Hence, it forms as a part of confidential information. But there is a distinction. A couple of times, this word and the word privacy. The next slide is, so there has been a lot of uproar, hue and cry over the term privacy. In fact, we have had recent developments where government of India is also considering to bring in act related to privacy. But what is privacy and what is confidentiality? So there is a thin margin, there is a thin line of difference between privacy and confidentiality, because couple of times these terms they interchangeably use, but they are different. The connotations, the interpretation, their significance, and the notions and the concepts are completely different. So, however, they have some common positions. So, confidentiality and privacy have lot of common ingredients and are often used interchangeably. However, these two concepts have numerous distinguishing features. So privacy is about a right of an individual to keep his personal information, be it financial information, be it his medical information, to himself and not to disclose it in the public domain. However, if we see, which we have seen, the notion or definition of confidentiality, it's a secret, it's a sort of trade secret, it's a secrecy or the state of having as a state of having the dissemination of certain information which is restricted one. So if you see, if you decipher these definition as well as these two concepts, the law of privacy applies to an individual, to a natural person. Company or legal entity or legal person may not have this right or may not claim that there is a breach of my privacy. If there is any breach related to key documents, sensitive information or proprietary information, legal persons, they have remedy and they can claim protection under law of confidentiality. So that is the distinction. So at the time of deciphering definition and concept of confidential information, we read out that any information which is passed to any other person, whether it's a natural or artificial one. So in this case, in law of privacy, so it applies to a natural person. It doesn't, most of the time it applies to natural person. It doesn't automatically applies to any legal entities. But for confidentiality, yes, these legal persons can claim protection under law of confidentiality. So, Kunal, we could invite questions if participants or audience, if they have any questions so far.
Yes, so I'd request everyone to kindly, put their questions in the chat box if there are any. And so far we've not received any, but we'll await those. And so Prasad, so from what I understand, we had 2 sessions on privacy as well. One was with respect to privacy as a fundamental right, and the second one was with respect to PDP. So probably the aspect of privacy being a fundamental right being covered under Article 21 is also a different, I mean, even with respect to the remedies available, probably that would be a key distinction, would it be? In the sense that confidentiality would be more of a contractual aspect, and perhaps privacy would be more of a fundamental right aspect.
Yes, yes, that is one of the distinction as well, and we will also discuss that the breach of confidentiality doesn't always arise from breach of contract. We have couple of high court precedents in India as well as in UK, where there is an, even though there is no agreement, there is no contract between the parties, still a disclosing party has a right to sue the recipient of confidential information for its breach. We'll definitely discuss this point.
Right.
Thank you for this one.
So right now we don't have questions, so you may proceed.
Yes, yes, thank you. So this is an interesting case law, and this was a very controversial one, in fact. We, of course, we don't want to disclose the names of the parties, but this went to Supreme Court. So the patient was HIV positive, Mr. X, and hospital authorities, without express permission of Mr. X, disclose his reports to Miss A, who was proposed to be married to the patient. Of course, this led to the patient, to the patient who severely criticized and the action of the hospital. And then petition was filed before Honorable Supreme Court that whether that particular hospital failed to adhere its duty to maintain the confidentiality of the patient or not, and whether they have also breached his right to privacy. Then Honorable Supreme Court held that while the patient had a right to privacy under Article 21, but this right of Miss A, who was proposed to be married to the patient, she had right to be informed about any threat to her own life or health, and this should override the right of privacy of the patient. So it was further held by the Supreme Court that the duty to maintain doctor-patient confidentiality was not absolute one, and such duty can be breached in the interest of public or in the interest of other human beings or in the interest of other party. So we will also discuss this point that various high courts as well as Supreme Court in India, they laid down the guidelines, they laid down the ratio and the principle that what are the rights which you seek to protect under law of confidentiality are not absolute. Even in this particular case, Supreme Court has held that, so right to privacy is not absolute one. It doesn't override if it clashes, if it conflicts with interest of public or interest of other parties.
Yes.
So in addition to this, there are varied concepts, different concepts of confidentiality, and this confidentiality concept is more related to employer and employee. So confidentiality exists in all fields of life, and say for example, we commonly see that employer most of the times during these days, so most of the employers, they enter into NDA, non-disclosure agreements or mutual non-disclosure agreements with their employees, and throughout their employment, these employees are exposed to various confidential information of that particular company or business enterprise, such as business strategies, pricing, list of customers, list of suppliers, and other proprietary information. So that's why it's very important for any employer to protect this information from being divulged to its competitor by entering into non-disclosure agreements with its employees. So by entering this agreement, employee is obligated to protect all such trade secrets and proprietary information of the employer, which is disclosed to him in confidence. So the employee is bound to protect and keep in confidence any sensitive, proprietary, confidential information of his uh, employer, and vice versa. Employer is also bound to protect sensitive information, personal information of his employees. So it's a twofold, it's a two-way traffic. Another instance of concept of confidential exchange of confidential information, as we do being lawyers, we interact a lot of with our clients. So clients, they visit us, they meet us, and they discuss and consult us their problems, their issues, their concerns in confidence, and it falls under the category of attorney client privilege. So any consultation advice which client seeks from his lawyers, so they are inherently fall as a confidential, and they need to be protected. So it's our bounden duty to protect discussions which we hold with, the talks which we hold with our clients, and details of such consultations or discussions advice should not be generally or should not be divulged, or it should be divulged only upon the express consent of our client. The same applies to doctor-patient relationship. So anyone who sees his doctor, visits his doctor, their discussion regarding the health issues and related medical issues, those discussion, it should be kept as a confidential. Uh, it is not necessarily that they both should execute an agreement or contract for disclosure of this information, but it's an inherent one, it's a deem, and it's a assumption on the part of anyone to keep this information or discussion confidential one. So moving on to another topic, which is connected one, and while discussing law of confidential information, we are going to touch upon various other laws, streams of law, especially the copyright, IPR. Why is it so? We'll see in the next slide. So because in most of the times, so we get little bit perplexed, we mix these concepts, whether especially the source code or computer programs, whether they fall under the category of copyright or confidentiality. What happens to protection of source code? And source code, as we know, it's the key content of any computer program, and most of the companies, they do not want to go for registration, because natural, it's very natural, because if you go for registration, you will have to disclose, you will have to divulge, you will have to provide all details at the time of registration. You will have to put it in your application and go before the registry for obtaining registration. By doing this, the source code, or the whatever the product, or whatever the information which they would like to keep it as a trade secret or as a confidential, would would become available in public domain. And that's the challenge. That's why most of the IT companies, even though they have source code, you will hardly find anyone or any copyright registration of source code, because source code is a key one. It's the asset, in fact, on which the computer program or that particular application runs on. And if they go for registration, their competitor or anyone who is interested in that information will definitely have access uh, to this information, and they will start duplicating, they will start making this competing product. And at the time of by the time uh, it is registered, that registration would have no validity in terms of or in the sense of commercial activities, because it would be already in market, and the originator, the owner, the inventor, he would lose all his commercial advantage. So to come to the aid of this particular aspect, the courts in UK and India, they have come to the aid of this particular legal issue or legal challenge, and they have stated in their judgments, we'll visit those judgments as well, that law of confidence is broader right than law of copyright, and confidential information is very well protected under laws of India. The prime distinction between these two streams of law, that we have codified Copyright Act, but we do not have any specific legislation regarding confidential information or trade secrets. Although we have more than 12,000 laws in India, but we do not have any single legislation regarding law of confidentiality.
So,
how,
Prasad, I just had a question here that, for example, practically it may happen that you enter into a confidentiality clause in the employment contract, but there are certain maybe business processes or know-how which the employer has. So would the confidentiality aspect, is there any way of ensuring that the employee, even once he leaves the organization, would not use that know-how and be stopped by the confidentiality agreement or the confidentiality clause from using that know-how in a subsequent workplace? Or would know-how in that sense not be covered by a confidentiality agreement? Could you just give us some idea on that?
Yes, Kunal. So good question. So again, there is a thin line of difference. Whatever employee does during his employment, say for example, he also applies his own mind, his own skill. He gains knowledge by by doing experiments. And there are certain aspects, say for example, processes, know-how, etc.
Right.
So these are related to, and these are invention, or these are efforts or capital investments made by the employer himself over the years, and he comes up with this kind of know-how or processes where his product gains competitive advantage or cutting edge over other products and services. Right. So it's a very difficult and challenging task for lawyers as well as those entities, employers or disclosing parties, to prove that. Say for example, this employee leaves this organization and starts using this confidential information or know-how or these processes in his next employment, or he starts his own business. And if there is a breach, then duty or the burden, as we all know, that burden would be on the claimant or the plaintiff to show that this know-how or this process was in fact my baby, and now he has been misusing this, and he's because of, it's not only about misuse, but because of which I have been now suffering losses. Right. So it's, as I said, so it's a very thin line of difference. So it will so evidence will have to be laid before courts. Evidence in the terms of how disclosing party or employer or that business entity will have to prove in courts of law that this information or know-how belongs to us, and now he has started misusing. So that particular employee didn't have any knowledge of the same. He only gained this knowledge. We provided him access. We imparted him with particular training. Say for example, even in manufacturing industry, they depute their employees. They send out, they ask their employees to go in different locations, maybe in India, abroad, to understand the working functionality of that machine as well. So employer will have to show that all he so he invested lot. He sent out that employee for training, so by which this employee gained knowledge and access to this know-how.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Right. Thank you for answering that.
Yes. Yes. So So Indian courts, so now we are going to see most from litigation perspective about how this law of confidentiality is
Prasad,
interpreted.
sorry to interrupt. This is Ashish here. Uh, is it okay to ask questions?
Yes, yes, please.
Yes,
Hi,
sure.
hi, please.
Yeah, thanks, Prasad. So, Prasad, as you gave an example, I mean, you said that the information which an employee shares during his next employment, okay, his existing employment, okay. So, his earlier employer, is it necessary for the earlier employer to declare that particular information as the proprietary?
Yes, good question. So we discussed this aspect at the time of deciphering definition that yes, information must be declared as confidential. That otherwise each and every information document would be considered as confidential and it would lose its meaning itself. You can't say each and every document, each and every message or WhatsApp message or every email which I send to you is a confidential one. We will also see this aspect that at the time of disclosure of key sensitive proprietary information to employee, all at the time of imparting this information, it is always suggested and advised that you should mark it as a confidential, whether you share it over email or whether you share the hard copy or the file, physical file of that particular document or information, but you mark it as a confidential. Even at the time of oral disclosure, you should clearly mention during your conversation or communication that yes, it's a confidential one. You should mention it. Otherwise, uh, as I said, it would lose its meaning of confidentiality.
Okay, thanks, Prasad. That answers my question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So, Prasad, we have one question in the chat box from Mr. Sham Talavadekar. Is the publication of material itself publication of material itself evidence enough for the claimant? And some say if the material is like a management model, or do you need more like elaboration on this to answer this question?
Yeah, so elaboration, but what I understand, let me answer his question, and then he would in fact confirm whether I get it or not. So I put it in an illustration, and that would help for even for everyone. And we had handled this case. So our client was a IT company, and couple of employees who work on a key project of customer of our client. They left. The employment of our client company, and because of some they were disgruntled employees or whatever the difference of opinion of their transition was not smooth one, and after leaving the employment of this particular company, they publish not the source code but key aspects related to source code and product of the customer of our client on social medias and on various IT forum, and that publication so amounted to the breach of confidential information. So we sent out legal notices to these employees, ex-employees, that you were bound by the obligation of confidentiality, and by disclosing the key information of product of customer of our client, you have not only breached, but now because that customer has now terminated relationship with us, now you are bound to pay us damages. So any publication which you do without any authorization from the disclosing party or the owner of that particular information amounts to breach of confidential information. Whether it answers the question, Kunal, was
Okay.
it the question?
Okay, Talwadekar here. I myself
Yes,
will
sir.
clarify. What I meant by this publication is, let us say I have a management model working in my company and my employee is using that model for my clients where I go for consultancy. Now, the essence of that model, if he practices going outside, then in that case, if I claim that you are using my model you have left my company, you are using my model, the methodology of my model outside, which you should not do. Can I, as a claimant, without any copyright on this, just by mere publication of this model in my company as a form of SOP, a standard operating procedure of that model, let us say, can I claim that he has breached my confidence? What I mean by publication is that, not what you have mentioned about publication. I understand what you said about IT company. Here, what I meant is, if my employee working in my company using the published SOP material of that management model, he is advising my clients. Now, when you leave my company, you should not be using this model anywhere else. Can I claim this just by the publication of this model in my company?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Because even though you do not have any registration, or you have not gone for registration of copyright over that material, it does not take away your right to restrain him from publishing or using or making unauthorized use for his personal gains. So you have definitely right to go behind him under law of confidentiality. And that's what we discuss about the law of confidentiality versus law of copyright. The SOP, or the management module of whatever that particular booklet which you have prepared, for which you have invested your efforts, capital, labor, and it's your proprietary information. Yes, definitely you can go behind that particular employee, because not only he's using it, but by doing commercially exploiting it, you have been suffering losses. So hence, even though you have no registration as such for under copyright, but you can very well go behind him under the law of confidentiality.
Okay, good. Thank you. But just an extension of this, supposing I have published as an author, I have published this material on internet, and let us say it backdates to 2 years before. And now under a certain model name ABCD, let us say. And now this model without my consent is being used by someone else. Once again, this is not registered as under Copyright Act, etc., etc. Just mere publication of this 2 years before on internet, it is available in public domain with a note down there, you should seek my permission, or confidential note, what you have mentioned about, just mere mentioning of confidential under that document. Can this also be an evidence if I claim that you have breached the confidentiality, sorry?
Two key aspects here. First of all, in your illustration, or in this example, you yourself published this material on internet 2 years ago. So that's the first part. So you made this information available in public domain, which is freely available. So it doesn't remain as a confidential one. So it has lost its meaning of confidential one, because you have yourself made it available in public domain. So then you won't be able to pursue your actions against him, even though you put the words confidential or whatever other words, that disclaimers, etc. But you have made this information available in public domain. So that's why it has lost its meaning itself. Then it would be little bit difficult for you to go behind him for breach of confidentiality.
Not the full information. Not the full information. It is just the profile which is mentioned. Let us say just the model in the form of a figure. Okay. But the essence of that model may run into 5 pages as to how to practice it. So that those 5 pages information is not published. It is just the model outline. It is like my name Shyam Talwardekar. This is known in public. But what Shyam Talwardekar is, what he does, how he does, is not published. And now you are using that method which is not published.
Right. So this relates to, or this goes back to the question of know-how and processes, which we talked about when Kunal raised the query about know-how and processes. So now I got the essence, and I got your question. Say you just publish the very part or very preliminary aspect of your publication, and that method, process, or methodology, it's still under confidentiality, right? It is not disclosed or it is not available in public domain, right, sir? Talaude sir?
Right.
Right. Then you can definitely, if it is, see, that's why we discuss the elements of confidentiality. If it fulfills that criteria, then you will have to establish your case that this information which was exchanged with him during his employment, it was given under trust, it was confided with him, it was clearly told to him that this is a confidential information, and if you misuse it and if I suffer losses, then I will definitely sue you. And for that unpublished part, that methodology, you can very well go behind him for the breach of confidentiality.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir. So any questions or shall we move on?
No, Prasad, we can move on. Actually, I mean, we all have 40 minutes left for the session, so we can move on.
Right. So now we will see how Indian courts, they have interpreted this law of confidentiality. So in today's as we have been talking about, in digital age and today's computerized age, maintaining and protecting secrecy of one's data is paramount to all businesses and to all individuals. So as confidential information, it holds very important and significant key to all business enterprises, in particular, as we discussed, to IT sector, manufacturing industry, because of their machines, because of their drawings, designs. There has been argument over how Indian courts, they protect this confidential information in the absence of any particular legislation. So Indian courts, they have emphasized this aspect that law of confidence is a distinct one, a different one than of law of copyright. So now we see these are a couple of landmark judgments by Honorable Bombay High Court. So how Indian courts have considered this area of law, that one must consider real challenge which lies in proving not only confidentiality, but also ownership of that particular information, data, and idea. Then not only about the ownership, but the disclosing party or the claimant plaintiff will have to also show and satisfy the court that there was a transfer, transmission, and communication of that particular confidential information to the recipient. And recipient, he misused this information for his own personal benefits. So these are a couple of aspects which one must consider while taking his case before courts of law. So if we decipher, if we analyze these aspects broadly, you can see that, first of all, you will have to prove that it is your own confidential information. So you are owner of that particular document or data or information. Then second aspect, second stage, that you will have to prove, you will have to establish, and you have to corroborate evidence that there was a transfer or transmission, exchange, sharing of that information, imparting of that information to the recipient. And not only that, but you will have to, again, on top of it, you will have to again establish that there was a misuse, there was unauthorized disclosure by which I have been suffering losses. So you'll have to prove before courts of law that all these three ingredients to consider your case by courts in India. So if you see this Zee Telephones Limited, it's a 2003 judgment of Honorable Bombay High Court, where Honorable Bombay High Court laid down a principle. And it was, of course, it was borrowed from courts in UK, that law of breach of confidence is a different from law of copyright, and law of confidentiality also includes an unpublished idea that may have been disclosed in a relation of trust. So this answers a question of Talaudekar sir, that it includes unpublished idea or unpublished document which was disclosed, in his case, disclosed to the previous employee. So in this case, the Bombay High Court further elaborated that, so copyright protects only material form which is in writing or visuals, but law of confidential information protects written as well as oral communication or oral information. So if you see where copyright subsets, it's in literary, artistic, musical, musical works or cinematography, etc. So these are visuals, or it is in some kind of written form. It has some kind of written. It is something is written down, or it's in a visuals.
Right.
But confidential information can be also imparted orally. It doesn't need to be always in writing. In confidence, you share some proprietary or sensitive information to your employees or to your business partners. So Bombay High Court has laid down this principle, which we have been discussing, that these two rights, the copyright and the law of confidentiality, are two different connotations, and copyright doesn't subsist only in mere idea or information, but law of confidence, it subsists in an idea or information in its oral form as well. Then moving on to next authority which is cited here, it's about the Urmi Zuvekar versus Global Broadcast News. So this was again Honorable Bombay High Court's judgment in 2007, and it reiterates the view taken by the same court in Zee Telephone, and it was held that the confidentiality can be claimed in an idea. So ratio in this case was that an action of breach of confidence succeeds only if plaintiff could identify clearly what was the information he was relying on, and it has to be shown that it was handed over in the circumstance of confidence and could be treated as a confidential. So courts in India, they borrowed the concept of law of confidentiality from courts in UK, and they started protecting disclosing parties or the owners of those confidential information from any unauthorized disclosure, resulting into losses or damages to these owners or these parties.
So, Prasad, just one question here, that, you know,
Yes.
for example, now if I say that, you know, I have an idea about writing a book, so in my mind I know what the concept will be and what the characters will be, but I have not written it down yet, and then to a friend I tell him in confidentiality that, you know, I mean, this is what my idea is. So although that that idea may not be copyrightable because there's nothing written down, maybe would confidentiality aspect apply in this such a case?
Yes, in principle, yes. Even though, as
I mean,
we
it must be
discussed,
difficult to prove, that I agree, but I'm just asking from a, you know,
yes.
conceptual
In fact, I was about to say the same thing, that yes, in principle you could, but very difficult to establish.
Right.
If you had shared this your concept or idea with him only on one-on-one basis. Otherwise, if it was disclosed before, say before your family member or his family members, you could ask them for witness, etc. But difficult to prove. But in principle, the answer is yes.
Right. Understood. And just one point, there's a question by Mr. Amol Ghat Pandey that whether confidentiality clause needs to be specified in offer of employment or whether general law will be applicable. So that I understand you'll take up later, right? Like in subsequent slides, you would be taking it up.
Yes.
Can I say something? Talwadekar
Yes, sir.
here. In continuation to what Advocate Kunal Gokhale just now asked, sorry, I lost my. I'll just come back to this. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I
Yes,
lost
sir.
my question.
So you can, if you want, put it in the chat box so that we can raise it.
Yes, yes, I'll do that.
Sure. Thank you.
So moving on to next aspect, which is how confidential information be protected. So just to answer, I think Mr. Ghatpande had raised this question that whether there should be a specific confidentiality clause in the
So his
offer
question is
letter.
whether confidentiality clause needs to be specified in offer of employment, and whether it's a prerequisite or will the general law be applicable?
Right. So we'll answer his questions, but before that, we first go through these pointers. Then we would turn our attention to his question. So how confidential information can be protected. So say, for example, these which we have been discussing: designs, drawings, trade secrets, formula, process, know-how, can be protected by way of executing NDAs. So we call it as a NDAs, so non-disclosure agreements. So at the time of employment agreements should also have clauses related to non-disclosure non-disclosure of information. Then if you are business enterprise, if your company, then we advise and suggest to you that you should hold regular sessions, periodical sessions and trainings on how you could handle confidential information. Then another way of protecting confidential information of corporates, that you should establish policies. Nowadays, most of companies have their own administrative HR policies, IT policies. Then you should also, in IT policy, you could add you could have sub policy related to confidential information. Otherwise, you could have separate policy related to confidential information. So you can establish a policy related to use of mobile phones, social medias in your workplace. So by which you can protect your confidence, or at least you could have some kind of SOPs, standard operating procedures or guidelines for your employees against the unauthorized disclosure of confidential information. Just going back to the question of Mr. Ghatpande, in the offer letter, yes, you could have a specific, and that it doesn't need to, that particular confidential clause doesn't need to run into a couple of paragraphs, or it doesn't need to run into pages, but you could say that very well you can write a single line, because nowadays we have been seeing a lot of attrition, influx, outgoing employees. They use offer letters as a springboard to negotiate with the other employers opportunities. So you could very well write a single line or small clause related to confidentiality, that whatever your negotiation or discussion with our company or that particular business enterprise is a confidential one, and you should keep all this information confidential one. Does it answer his question, or does he need more elaboration?
Ghatpande sir, does it answer your question?
No. My question is the confidential. I'm among Ghatpande here.
Yes.
It may be a silly question, but in the offer of employment, no confidentiality clause has been mentioned, nor there is a NDA executed with the employee. That is my question. There is no mention of the confidentiality clause in the offer of employment, nor a separate NDA has been executed with the employee. Whether any know-how, that was I mentioned therein, whether it is a prerequisite. If it is not mentioned, still as a general law, that whatever the know-how or of the employer, whether he can claim a confidentiality.
Right, sir. In fact, I correlate this with one of the recent case which we handle, and let me cite that example to you. So in this case, so one of the employees, inbound employee, he didn't sign the offer letter. He didn't sign any documents, agreements related to NDA or anything with the company. But in good faith, he was given induction. He was, as you say, he was provided know-how of that particular company within 2 days period. And suddenly he turned his back and he said, "Now I got better offer. Now I will go to your and I will join your competitor." Now the company approached us, and company asked us what would be the solution. Now he has been given our induction, know-how, processes, and he's going to join our competitor. So of course, company didn't take any steps. It was, in fact, HR department. They overboarded, and they went overboard, and they in over enthusiasm, because this was very high level employees, senior personnel, senior, in fact, one of the very experienced and senior person. So they didn't bother to execute any agreement, and they just allow him to enter into premises of company. They let him know all their processes, although not in detail, but at least he could have fair idea about how it works. And he was also given presentation, orientation, induction programs. And then we were instructed by our client to send out a legal notice to him, which we did. And that's how it happens. So you need to be very sensitive of whether in your all your business communication, be it employee, be it your vendor, be it your customer, whatever information which you are going to divulge, please be ensured that you need to have these kinds of clauses or agreements. Because yes, you can claim very well, as we discussed in one of the examples which Kunal asked. uh, in principle, we can go behind these persons, these individuals, but it would be little bit difficult to prove in courts of law if there is a breach, and by that breach if we suffer losses. If you have documentation handy in your hand, that would help you to fight your case in courts of law. So before divulging, before disclosing, even before starting, and if you see most of the IT companies, they don't even start talking about any project assignment before they sign NDA. The foremost requirement to even start discussing about any proposal is to have NDA at place, NDA, sign NDA on the table, and then thereafter only they start negotiating and discussing. So does it answer your question, Mr. Ghatpande?
Thank you. That is what is the process what you are following, that you are telling. Yes, nowadays NDA is a must, even in the offer of employment is there. But my question was whether a general law will be applicable, and that confidentiality is by rule it will be applicable. What I feel.
Yes, of course. If you do not have any...
My suggestion or my view is that there is no need of the confidentiality agreement or confidentiality clause either in the offer of employment or otherwise. But if it is proved that the information is whatever available is confidential in nature, a specific know-how, then irrespective of whether there is a clause or not, the confidentiality can be claimed in the court of law. That is my view is there.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And your view is absolutely correct. And it not only that, it has been upheld by various high courts, especially in Delhi High Court. And we have one or two dedicated slides for this, that the ratio which has been led by these judgments clearly say that even if you do not have any written agreement, still you can be sued for breach of confidentiality if you have done it. You cannot take a defense that there was no such written agreement. It is an implied agreement, and it is not only about that, it is the equitable right, and it's the law of equity comes into the picture when you disclose confidential information. And by law of equity, the recipient is bound to protect the information which was shared with him by disclosing party in confidence. So your view is absolutely...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes. So your view is absolutely right, and we will definitely discuss this point when we move on. So we have a couple of slides dedicated for this particular legal issue. So shall we move on? Any other question?
No, we can
move on. Yeah, I think we have around 20 minutes left. So as in we'll extend it, but we can move on.
So this is one of the aspects where you can protect your confidential information through agreement. So non-disclosure agreement is of course, legal binding agreement between disclosing and party and recipients. So which mandates or stipulates that a recipient should not disclose or divulge any information which was revealed by disclosing party under this agreement. Say, for example, in couple of times, these NDAs are unilateral ones. They are favorable to the employers or to some party disclosing parties. And couple of times, these are mutual non-disclosure agreements where these are balanced ones, where both parties, they exchange information with each other. So these agreements, they not only set out the terms and conditions related to disclosure on or unauthorized disclosures, but you could have also insert clauses related to liquidated damages in terms of monetary reliefs if you would like to claim if there is a breach of confidential information. You could also very well insert the clauses related to injunction, clauses related to jurisdiction of the courts. So you can cover these aspects by entering non-disclosure agreements with your employees, with your business partner, with your customers, or with your vendors. So there would not be any ambiguity at the time of approaching courts of law, because couple of times then if there is a breach, and even if you execute NDA, but that NDA does not have any jurisdiction clause, or if it does not have any unliquidated damages, then sometimes it gets complicated. So better you have it all these terms clearly written down in your agreements. So this is the key aspect now which we are coming, and everyone, so most of questions were related to this, how we could protect our confidential information in absence of agreements. So confidential information can very well be protected even though there is no written contract. So again, if we revisit the definition or the elements of confidentiality, then you need to prove before courts of law that that particular information which was disclosed to the recipient, it had element of confidentiality. So it was a confidential information one. And then this information was exchanged with that particular person, that is a recipient one. And then he misused this information, and because of which I have been suffering losses. So this is a Saltman. So this is a case law which laid down the premise of this discussion, that protection of confidentiality in absence of agreements. So to understand the legal implications of this aspect, so we need to understand this case law, and this is of course very interesting one, where the plaintiff was the owner of certain drawings, and he had proposed to enter an agreement with the defendant to manufacture certain products. And then the plaintiff shared a couple of relevant drawings with the other side, that is the defendant. But then somehow there was a difference of opinion or whatever, because of differences. They didn't enter into an agreement, but defendant started using these particular drawings. So plaintiff had no other choice but to approach the courts, and then he challenged such unauthorized use of his drawings by defendant. Then defendant argued that there was no formal contract which existed between both of us. But it was observed by the courts in UK that it would not matter whether there was a contract or not. What mattered was the defendant, whether they had access and whether they received these drawings into their own hands, knowingly or unknowingly, and afterwards they started using for their personal gains. And there was no dispute, or there was no denial that these drawings belong to the plaintiff. So defendants knew that these are drawings of the plaintiff, and they started using this for their own purpose, and hence court in UK held that defendant was in breach of confidence. So I guess it answered everyone's question that whether it is necessary to have NDA or whatever, any kind of agreement at place before suing for breach of confidentiality. So it has been clearly laid down by this judgment that there is no need to have written agreement. Even in case of absence of any written agreement, you can sue for breach of confidentiality. And to succeed in the suit of breach of confidentiality, like a classical trinity of passing off, there are three important aspects or three important conditions. That information must be confidential one, then it was communicated, exchanged to the other side or to the recipient one, and there was an unauthorized use, which is a detrimental to the disclosing party. It may result into losses or damages or may not, but it should be the detrimental to the business interest of the party. Then, as we discuss and as we touch upon various other streams of law, copyright, law of equity, then there is another aspect.
Just one point on with respect to the last slide. Would it be possible? I know it's an English judgment. Would it be possible to share? Like, would you have a copy of this judgment by any chance? Then we could maybe share
Yes,
it.
I will share it with you. Yeah,
then
I will
you can share
share
it on the WhatsApp group also.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So law of confidentiality also touches upon other streams of law. We discuss about how it interacts or interjails with law of copyright, how it relates to law of equity. Now we have to see the aspect of Contract Act, and in particular section 27. As all of us know that section 27 is about restraint of trade. You can't have any agreement which restrains or which puts on any negative covenant on the employee by which he is debarred or he is prohibited from being employed. So the section 27 and confidentiality. So section 27 is definitely a negative right or negative covenant which deals with. So as all of us know that any negative covenant which is beyond the terms of employment period or employment term cannot be enforced. But there are certain judgments where there is a overlap of this section along with breach of confidentiality. So in India, so courts in India, they have upheld that even though it's a negative covenant and post employment period, but still the obligations of confidentialities have to be adhered, have to be followed, even if you leave the employment months back or years back. It doesn't matter, that restriction or that obligation still carries on. It goes into perpetuity. So this is a landmark judgment by Honorable Bombay High Court, and it was delivered by Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, so who is now Justice of Supreme Court of India. So he held that so any clause which prohibits an employee from disclosing commercial or trade secrets would not be hit by section 27. So he says that so if there is a clause which restricts, prohibits any employee from disclosing any commercial or trade secrets or confidential information, then section 27 of Contract Act doesn't come into picture. It means that you cannot take a defense that after employment, confidential information can be disclosed, can be divulged, can be revealed, and I will not be under obligation anymore. So because the rationale or the logic behind this judgment or the principle behind this judgment is that it doesn't result. So by putting these restrictions, it doesn't result into employee being restrained from exercising his lawful profession, trade, or business. So in simple words, it says that you can very well profess any business, you can conduct any business, do any business, or you can engage with someone else, you can be employed. It doesn't, by putting this restriction, it doesn't obstruct you from starting any business or doing any new employment. So the logic or rationale behind this judgment is that law of confidentiality should be protected as it doesn't hinder your prospects of livelihood. You can very well start this new venture, but at the same time, you should also follow your obligation related to law of confidentiality.
Right.
So this judgment further held that restraint on use of trade secrets during or after cessation of employment does not tantamount to a restraint on trade under Section 27 of Indian Contract Act.
Right.
So any questions on this point or any questions so far? So can we move on? So what are the, we have been discussing, so what are the instances of breach of confidentiality?
Sorry, Prasad, can you also share that earlier judgment, the VFS one?
Yes, it's a 2007 or 8 Bombay High Court judgment. I will share it.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So what is the ingredient of breach of confidentiality? So any intentional or unintentional, as we see this concept from law of intellectual property rights, that infringement is an infringement, whether it's the intentional one or unintentional one, it doesn't matter. So any intentional or unintentional disclosure of information which was given to recipient in confidence is a breach of confidentiality. So it's a violation of trust, and it is recognized by courts in India as well as courts in UK as well. In fact, we borrow this concept principle from courts in UK, and this law in India is still evolving. As we discussed that we do not have any specific legislation or specific act for law of confidentiality. So we have been discussing and we have been relying on various judgments of high courts in India. So coming on to remedies, what are remedies for breach of confidentiality? So we discussed that what is confidential information, how it should be protected, then what are the ingredients, and now whether, despite of following all this, what would be the remedy if there is a breach of confidential information. So there are two remedies, especially in civil law, there are two civil remedies that you can very well go behind that person and file a suit for injunction, temporary as well as permanent injunction, to prevent for further disclosure of confidential information. You could very well pray for return or destruction of all confidential and proprietary information. You could very well ask for undertaking or affidavit before court that yes, it has been written or it has been completely destroyed. You can ask for this declaration before the courts of law as well. And then you can go also for damages. You can go for whether if there is a specific provision in your NDAs about the liquidated damages, then you could very well press for that. Otherwise, you can go for unliquidated damages. Along with that, there are a couple of other remedies which fall under criminal law. You could very well go behind these perpetrators under IT laws, and you could very well connect these IT sections along with IPC. So there could be a stringent, there could be a message for this unauthorized disclosure of confidential information.
So Prasad, in this case, would it be like under IPC, would it probably be a case of criminal breach of trust? That, you know, you had this information provided to you as a matter of trust and then you have divulged it. So would probably those... applicable?
Could be. To be honest, I don't practice criminal law, but
Right.
yeah, but as a prima facie, yes, could be very well. In
Right.
fact, criminal litigating lawyer would assist us more on this point.
Right.
But yes, that could be section 405, that is 405 and
Yeah,
406 of
right.
IPC. And
Right.
if there are more than two perpetrators, then there could be, say, 120B, common intention, and section 34 of IPC.
Right.
Whether those could be invoked along with other IT sections.
Right. Understood. Yeah.
Right. Then, so what are remedies available under IT laws? So there are specific sections, say under section 43, A, 65, 72, 72A of Information Technology Act, where you can use these available remedies under law to prevent unauthorized disclosure of confidential information. And if you would like to go for criminal prosecution along with civil remedies. So we discuss civil remedies in form of injunction and as well as damages. So another thing, important thing about the extent of protection, and this was discussed in Bombay Dyeing case, and this is again one of the judgment of Honorable Bombay High Court, and it says that the protection under confidentiality is not absolute. As we discussed, one of the case law related to privacy, Supreme Court had held that even right of privacy is not absolute when it conflicts with rights of public and rights of other parties. So in this case also, Honorable Bombay High Court observed that any information which is already within the public domain cannot be termed as a confidential one. And any person in employment for some period would know certain facts which would come to his knowledge without any special efforts. So the mere use of words such as strategy, crucial policies would not give it character of secrecy, as these could be anticipated by an individual with foresight. So any information which is available in public domain cannot be treated or cannot be considered as a confidential one, as it lacks its basic ingredient of secrecy. So it loses its character when it comes into the public domain. So any information which also we also discuss this part. So any information which forms a part of his employees his own knowledge or skill set, it cannot be covered and protected under the law of confidentiality. So the extent is of protection is not absolute.
Right.
So there are a couple of checklists which we advise that how you could prevent unauthorized disclosure. So you should always put all your confidential documents, of course, not keep it loosely. Based upon sensitivity of the material, keep such documents in a locked desk or cabinet. You could also follow it in on your laptops, where you could use passwords for those particular folders, or you could keep it in server where access is very limited one. You should not put give blanket access to all. So you should keep this. Then do not leave any documents containing confidential information which can be easily seen by people just passing by, or who do not need to know. For example, there are teams within the organization. So one team works on a particular project, then our other team doesn't need to know about information about that particular project. So the third one, you should avoid unnecessary copying of these confidential documents. So avoid multiplicity, creating multiple documents. Then never distribute any internal use only documents outside companies. So a couple of documents which are internal documents should not be used even for reference when you step outside for business meetings or business discussions. And do not use to just trash or recycle bins to dispose of. Use paper shredders for disposal of this information. So these were a couple of mechanisms, and these are again a couple of as a strategic and as a legal advice that you should label and you should mark all your information or documents data as a confidential, strictly confidential. Then you could secure this information by giving access to very limited personnel. Then only relevant data is disclosed only on need to know basis. That means it should not be generically disclosed to everyone even in the organization. Then you should keep records. So what was disclosed and to whom it was disclosed. Do not reveal any confidential information as we discussed that particular case without executing NDAs. So at least you should have some kind of documentation at place before you start negotiating, discussing, or holding business talks. Then you should have absolutely proper policies at place, whether it IT policy or separate policy related to confidential information. And you should hold periodical and regular trainings and how you handle confidential information. So this was
Prasad,
related.
Then once you're done, I'll just speak.
Yes. So these are slides, and this was the part related to confidential information. So we can move on to next non-competent, non-solicit. But yes, Kunal, if we are running out of time, then
No. So we'll just extend the session by another half an hour. If that is fine with you, then we'll extend it up to 6:30.
Yes, please. So any question? Sorry, I interrupted you. Had any question?
No. So there's one question by Siddharth Jathar. If you want, we can take it up at the end, or now I'll just read it out. That if new employer knowingly participates in the divergence in absence of privity between old employer and new employer, what kind of remedies can one pursue? I'm assuming this would be covered by the slide on absence of contract, like remedies available.
Could you please repeat, because it was a long question, so I couldn't get it. So can you please?
If the new employer knowingly participates in the divergence and there is an absence of privity between old employer and the new employer, so then what kind of remedies can one pursue?
Yes, so it covers in the that particular slide of which we discussed that point where there is even you can enforce your right of confidential information even if there is no written agreement. It covers under that aspect, that it doesn't need to be always in writing, but it would be little bit then difficult. So just putting disclaimer, and then you would have to come to us or to lawyers to establish your case before courts of law, that despite of absence of written agreement, how you could prove your case. But in principle, the answer is yes. You can very well go behind him, and you can sue, and you can enforce your rights for breach of, if there is a breach of confidentiality.
So Prasad, actually, I just had one question. That suppose now I am an employee, I pass on the information of my employer to a competing firm, but then that person doesn't use it, or he doesn't find it very useful, so he does not use it. So would that affect the amount of damages that would be available? I mean, that could have been claimed by my employer? As in, is it necessary that this you have to prove that this information was used for your own purposes? Because for me to have access to another person's systems may be difficult. So just the fact that confidential information was shared and accepted by the other party, would that be a good enough, like, allow the courts to raise a presumption that yes, it has also been misused?
Yes, absolutely, because there is a breach of contract, right? Or breach of
I mean, I'm
obligation.
asking from the perspective of damages, that if now, I mean, it may be difficult for me. I mean, if I'm a company, my employee has passed on the information to a third party, may be difficult for me to get all the information, as to how the third party may have utilized this information. So the fact that my confidential data was passed on to him, is it good enough a presumption to say that yes, probably he's even used that data?
Yes,
And
absolutely. So absolutely. In fact, so there was a breach at the first instance itself when confidential information, there was a breach of confidential information, whether other party, third party uses it or not, and whether you want to claim damages or not, that's the another question. But you will have to make both of them as a parties to your suit for injunction, because third party has access now. Third party is in custody of your confidential information. That third party may not have used it, or it may not have found it useful for time being. but you
Right.
never know if they have any other intention, if they change
Correct.
their mind, and if they start using that confidential information in future.
Mhm.
So it's better you go and file a suit against both of them. About
Right.
damages, yes, you can claim damages from the first party, that is a ex-employee.
Correct.
Yes, whether you have provision for liquidated damages or
Mhm.
not. But
Right.
against the second party, yes, second party or that competitor, he may come up with defense that yes, there was no use at all. There was no
Okay.
commercial exploitation of that confidential
Right.
information. So I'm not liable for damages.
Okay.
But again, that would be the question of trial and how would you prove it?
Right. Right.
That, but injunction, yes, you should go
Okay.
for suit for injunction against both of them.
Right. Understood. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So moving on to next subspecies or next chapter, it's about non-compete and non-solicit. So what is non-compete and non-solicit? So what are the principles of non-compete? So these are in addition to NDAs, or these are also part of law of contract, where you enter into an agreement with other party to non-compete. And again, it's a related one, but again, a different connotation of law of section 27, that both parties enter into an agreement where they agree to not compete with each other. So what are the principles of non-compete? So a non-compete agreement is or a clause which prohibits an employee, or even in case of businesses, we call it as a B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to customer, from entering into same business of that employer or that particular first party as his competitor. So this term is more related to uh, not competing or not entering into the same business sector or into same business industry. Even if you remain in same business sector, you should not compete with the existing product. So in simple terms, it says do not compete with my products or with my services. You should do any other services, or you should conduct any other business, but it should not be in direct competition with my products or services. So these clauses are generally inserted uh, mostly in the B2B contracts or B2B agreements, that you should not compete. Again, this is also a negative covenant. And in cases of employer employees, these can be viewed as, and in fact, courts in India have held that these are unenforceable agreements beyond the period of employment, and these are kind of somehow courts in India considered it as a restraint of employment. So most of these clauses or these kinds of agreement, these are entered by business to business. For example, in most of the merger and acquisitions or takeover of companies, these clauses are commonly found where ABC takes over company XYZ, and then at the time of taking over, ABC puts restriction that yes, I take over your company, but after taking over company, you should not start a similar product or identical product or services. Otherwise, there is no. Uh, so it would hamper, in fact, my investment. And if you again by encashing, by getting enriched from my own pockets, you start competition with me.
Correct.
So these are commonly common clauses in B2B B transactions.
So, Prasad, like when it comes to startups, when these founders' shares are bought out, like with respect to Flipkart, Sachin Bansal and Billy Bansal, then in such a case, usually non-compete would be allowable, right?
Right. Yes, yes. Because it is a takeover of business, and generally it applies to B2B. And in B2B, courts in India have held the enforceability of those clauses of those agreements. But in employer-employee, courts in India found it otherwise. But in B2B transaction, yes, courts have held that yes, you can enter into non-compete. But again, there are a couple of tests which have been laid down by courts. Those should be reasonable one.
Right.
Those should not be in perpetuity. Those should be restricted to particular geography, particular location. You cannot have perpetual non-compete agreements.
Right.
Right. Then we have a couple of interesting notions, and these are uh, uh, doctrines, couple of doctrines, and I will also discuss about the doctrine of springboard. But let me speak about this garden leave clauses. So garden leave is one of the doctrine which was introduced by courts. So it's not a concept of legislature, but it's the concept which was introduced by courts in UK and in India as well. That what is garden leave clauses? So a garden leave clause is a similar sort of non-compete clause, and it operates for a specified duration. That is after cessation of an employee's employment with his employer, uh, whether it be a resignation or termination. Under this clause, employer, he prohibits, he restrains employee from carrying on any business, or he asks his employees not to compete directly or indirectly with the business of employer, and prevents him from establishing a similar kind of business, and he pays for that. He pays for that particular period. Again, it should be a very reasonable period. It should not be a long term. It should be geographic location. So all these other conditions have also they have to be followed. And again, courts in India, they found these kinds of clauses are restraint of trade, and they have declared that these are not enforceable in the courts of law. So even courts in India, uh, they have also relied upon the doctrine of springboard. So springboard, which is used in swimming pools, where you just jump it and then you jump into the pool. So you cannot. The courts in India have introduced this doctrine and concept that you cannot springboard. That means you cannot use the confidential information of one party and use it for your own commercial gains. So courts in India have also introduced this concept and this doctrine. So moving on to non-solicit. So non-solicit is more, again, it's more about soliciting each other's employee. And as we discussed about non-compete, how it operates in B2B and B2C. Again, non-solicit is more related to B2B operations, where two companies, two organizations, two business enterprises, they come for a business, and especially in IT industries, where, as we know, that most of the employees are deputed at the site at the project, or at the site of the customer, that is the another entity. And these entities, they in turn, they provide lucrative offers to these personnel, and then they lure away these employees, and they get these employees of other party on their own role. To prevent that, most of these business enterprises, they agree and execute these non-solicitation clauses. So non-solicitation is an agreement generally executed between these two entities or these two parties, and they ask each other that they should not solicit each other's employee. And there's another concept or another notion, it is called as a non-circumvention, where you cannot circumvent, that is, you cannot directly approach my customers, or you cannot approach my prospects. So again, these are restrictive and negative covenants, but they are not completely void under Indian law, as courts have declared it that these are applicable and these are enforceable when they are under the circumstances of B2B, so B2B contracts. So the basic principle is that it should not result solicitation. It results into uh, uh, inducing other party, the third party, to break contractual relation between the existing employee or employer, that existing party, and to have direct contact or direct agreement, direct contract with that particular entity. So the principle or the logic behind is that you should not induce, you should not intervene, you should not interfere, or you should not pressurize any party to break its existing contract with the another entity where you have valid and ongoing agreement. So because it results into again loss of business, injury to ex-employers or business entities. So these are upheld by courts in India about the B2B, and it's a sort of tort as well. So civil wrong which you do to your, by which there is likelihood of injury, or it causes injury to the existing employer or existing business enterprises. So non-solicitation, where you should not solicit any of employees, any of the customers, any of the prospects for your own personal benefits. So these are non-competent, non-solicit clauses. But again, the question, legal question or legal.
Just one question that you mentioned. So basically, with respect to confidentiality agreements, you had said even if it is not part of the agreement, there are still certain remedies available. So if in a similar situation, if non-solicitation clause is not part of the employee agreement, then would tort be the remedy? Yeah, as put in bullet point.
Yeah, if you do not have any contractual agreement, then there is a you do not avail the provisions of Contract Act for breach of contract, then you could have to go for law of torts. But again, you will have to establish how you suffer losses and how you suffer damages, and for which you ask remedies.
Correct. Thank you.
So again, legal question comes in whether these clauses are enforceable, because these are restrictive and negative covenants. So general principle followed by courts in India is that any restriction on trade, occupation, profession, business post completion of that particular term of agreement or employment, they are illegal in the eyes of law. So law is very clear on this aspect that any negative covenant which forces the formal, we are talking about the individuals or the natural persons or the employees, which forces him to idleness, or he is compelled to work for his ex-employer, cannot be, because it's sort of bonded or forced labor. So you cannot enforce such clauses. But however, employee is always free to carry out his business in same domain, but he also needs to take precautions, and due diligence must be exercised that there is no violation of the terms pertaining to confidentiality. So by entering into new business venture, he should not, as we discussed, the springboard doctrine of springboard, where he should not use that confidential information of his previous employer to gain for his own commercial benefits. So that should be kept in mind. Then even former employer cannot restrain his employees from carrying out any trade, profession, business post the termination of their employment, unless there is a violation of any of the following. It's most related to, again, confidentiality, breach of terms related to confidentiality, proprietary information, as mentioned under various documents which have been signed and executed during the course of employment, or if there is any infringement of IP of previous employer, or if there is any breach of non-solicitation or non-compete. Again, these are most applicable to B2B cases, not in B2C cases.
Right.
And couple of judgments which are landmark judgments by various courts in India. So these are judgments: Hi-Tech, then MD, then Reuters Internationals. So the principle and the ratio which has been declared under these cases, it's more about injunction against ex-employees from divulging any information related to the confidential information of ex-employer. So in this case, especially in Hi-Tech, so it was held that the respondent ex-employees of plaintiff breached the confidentiality of the plaintiff, and then this is a judgment of Honorable High Court of Calcutta. So it restrained the respondents from procuring any breach of existing contract of the plaintiff with third parties. But court, however, held that at the same time, so court impose a restriction on the respondents or the defendants that you should not use any confidential information to make third parties to terminate their existing contracts with the plaintiff. But by this order, court also made it clear that it should not prevent respondents from carrying any business. So in this case, the Honorable High Court of Calcutta tried to achieve a balance. So by making this order, that Honorable High Court wanted to protect the livelihood of these employees, but at the same time, it also wanted to ensure that confidential information of ex-employer doesn't get disclosed in unauthorized manner or does not get used for any commercial gains by these respondents. Then in Rotas International, it is a judgment of Honorable Delhi High Court. So it reiterated the principle under Section 27 of Contract Act, and it says that it is an so to protect from the competition which clashes with the right of employees to seek employment elsewhere. So in this clash or in this conflict, the right of livelihood should prevail. So by declaring this judgment, what Honorable Delhi High Court has clearly laid down a principle. So when there is a question of livelihood, it must prevail, that when it clashes or when it conflicts with the law of, with the competition. So these employees, the ex-employees, they are entitled to earn their livelihood and they should not be restrained as it is hit by Section 27. In MB software, this is another judgment of Honorable High Court of Calcutta, and it is again a landmark judgment, and it was held that so inducing a person to break a contract with another or preventing a person from entering into contract with another was a tort. So Kunal, we discussed this point that it falls under the law of torts as well. And such tort was capable of being committed by an ex-employee despite protection granted under Section 27. So if any act of soliciting took such an active that it induced customers of plaintiff to terminate their contractual relationship with plaintiff and entering into contract with the respondents, then such act of soliciting should not be permitted. Right. So these are a couple of landmark judgments on non-solicit and non-compete. So what are the key takeaways from these sessions? That for any information, if it is to be termed as a confidential, then it should have elements of secrecy. It should have other ingredients or elements which we discussed, that it should be transmitted, it should be exchanged. Its unauthorized disclosure results into damage or losses to the, and it is detrimental to the business interest of the company. Then protection, even though you have protection under various judgments of high courts in India, despite of being there is no specific legislation for protection of confidential information, but this protection is not absolute. And any information which is available in public domain or is generally obtained as a knowledge during the course of employment cannot be treated as a confidential one. And then third aspect, which is a major, and this ratio has been laid down by we discuss these judgments of Honorable Bombay High Court, that law of confidence is a broader right than of law of copyright. Then post-employment confidentiality restraints are valid. We discussed how it clashes with Section 27 and how courts have held that any post-employment restrictions are invalid. But post-employment confidentiality obligation or restriction is a valid one. So establishing competing business based upon ex-employer's confidential information is not permissible. So it is a doctrine of springboard. You cannot use one other's confidential information to gain to benefit commercially. So solicitation is a sort of inducing someone to break his contractual relationship, and it can be termed as a civil wrong, and it falls under law of tort as well. So these are a couple of takeaways from these sessions. I would welcome question from participants if they have. And before I conclude, I would also like to thank my colleague Rucha Kumbhozkar, who meticulously prepared all these slides and work on these slides and for this session preparation. So thank you to Rucha as well.
Thank you, Rucha, from a study circle as well. Yeah. And so with that, I'll just take up, I can see one question here. The question is from Amrut, that is law of confidentiality related with law of insider trading charges?
Insider trading charges. Sorry, can you please repeat it?
Is law of confidentiality related with law of insider trading charges? If you want, you can stop sharing the screen, Prasad, and maybe you can put on your video also.
Okay. Yeah, so yes, but I'm not 100% or I'm completely sure, but there are SEBI rules and regulation regarding insiders. So we'll have to check that aspect, but that is a good question, and we can discuss it. So we'll have to go through, because I'm not 100% sure whether it falls under those rules and regulations of SEBI. If it is not, if that like a pigeonhole theory in law of torts, if it doesn't fit into there, then yes, you can very well go behind under law of confidential information.
Right. So from what I think and know of insider trading, basically I think it has more to do with price sensitive information with respect to the value of the shares. So basically, if law of confidentiality would be a much wider set, and law of insider trading charges would be a subset, and probably SEBI is the right authority for that. I think that would probably be the case. So if anyone has any questions, we may put them in the chat box. Otherwise, we can, I think we have covered all the questions as well. Whatever questions you ask, because I think there was one question from Mr. Aditya Dadich, that how do you protect yourself from non-solicitation of clients by any employee or senior exiting from the company, especially in consulting firms. So that I think was covered.
Right. Can I just ask half a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, in continuation to the question which you had asked about, what I said was whether we can, as a practical solution, whether we can just write a mail subsequent to the discussion about that idea. So today I discussed an idea with you, and then I can immediately follow it with a small email saying that we discussed this idea, please keep it confidential. Whether that can serve as an evidence in absence of any difficulty of oral evidence.
Absolutely good suggestion and good practice, and in fact that is a very good way to do it, that you share an idea with someone else and you immediately keep it on record by sending email, etc. Yes, that can be served as a very.
Why I said email is because Mr. Kunal, as my friend, may not like that I ask him to sign a minutes of meeting. I'll just follow it up with a mail, one-sided.
Absolutely, sir. And it creates evidence in favor of you, that you can very well show to the court if there is a dispute, that yes, it was discussed. And I had also clearly mentioned in my email that it was a confidential discussion. And despite of this, he didn't follow that confidentiality obligation.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Right. So yeah, I think all questions in the chat box have been answered. So with that, we'll come to the end of our session. And I would like to thank Prasad for agreeing to conduct this session and on such a wide topic. And he has done that fabulously. He has covered all three aspects so well. And I think now, like as Prasad said, to use Prasad's term, this is a good springboard for us to move to the next session where, once we know what confidentiality is and how the courts have interpreted it, it's probably now going to be easier to understand how exactly we should go ahead with drafting of clauses or advising clients when it comes to these clauses. So or even when it comes to, I think for litigators as well, this was a very good discussion from that perspective, that we also get to know as to, before the courts, what sort of arguments would be possible, what are the case laws and precedents on this. So thank you, Prasad, so much. It was a great pleasure having you here with us, and thank you for being very generous with sharing your knowledge. Session has gone on for 2 hours, but we have a very active participation from the audience. So thank the audience for being patient and being around for 2 hours and listening to Prasad patiently. And with that, I would like to conclude the session. Yeah, Prasad, if you'd like to say.
No, thank you again, everyone. And despite of being Saturday evening, everyone turn out, and so thank you. And again, I thank to you as well as Sir VP Shindre sir, and this it was nice initiative. Of course, it is a great pleasure to share whatever experience. It's not knowledge, whatever experience which we have gained with our brothers and sisters in our fraternity. It's always a pleasure. And thanks to Rucha, my colleague, once again. In fact, she, as I said, she did a fabulous job in preparing all these
quite
slides.
an exhaustive PPT also. So yes, thank you.
Right. Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for patiently hearing me.
Yes. Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. So with that, we'll come to the end of the session. I'll end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.